If I ask you to think of a famous inventor, who comes to mind? Is it Thomas Edison, George Washington Carver, Henry Ford, Madam C.J. Walker? Maybe it's someone more modern like Bill Gates, Elon Musk, or Sarah Blakely, the inventor of Spanx undergarments. Yes, all these people are famous, but what if I told you they didn't invent a thing? That the idea of the invention, and therefore the inventor, is a complete myth. None of these people truly created something that didn't exist before, at least in some form or another. Nor did they truly produce something for the first time. After all, Henry Ford's museum in Detroit is called the Museum of American Innovation, not the Museum of American Invention. In his book, Guns, Germs, and Steel, Jared Diamond argues that this heroic theory of invention has simply been encouraged by modern patent laws. That all of the people we recognize as famous inventors all had capable predecessors and successors and made their improvements at a time when society was just more capable of using that product. Or in other words, all of today's ideas are built on the shoulders of yesterday's ideas, and all of tomorrow's ideas will be built on the shoulders of today's. And this idea that nothing is new is not a new concept. About 3,000 years ago, there lived a very wise and wealthy king. The Bible tells us that King Solomon was the richest person in the world. He had more wisdom or wealth than any other person before him. It is estimated that in today's dollars, King Solomon would be worth $2.2 trillion, making him one of the richest people in all of world history. Well, one day, King Solomon was surveying his kingdom and possessions, observing that there is nothing new under the sun. It was all here already and will all be here again. Ecclesiastes 1, 9, and 10. But what if he was wrong? There were many inventions yet to come that King Solomon could have never imagined. There was no light bulb that lit up when he wrote those words. Ben Franklin wouldn't famously fly his kite until the 18th century. Thomas Edison wouldn't patent the first light bulb until 1879. And he certainly didn't tweet his observation from a tiny computer in his pocket. But what if he was right? After all, virtually all of the raw substances available to King Solomon were all naturally occurring materials. From those materials, people gradually learned how to work, combine, and convert those into new materials and things. And we still use a lot of those same materials for products today, such as fluorine in toothpaste or polonium in anti-static brushes. We know there are 118 elements, 94 of which are naturally occurring, but there are many other raw parts at our disposal as well. It is estimated that there are about 5,400 different minerals in the world, and nearly 9 million different species of plants, animals, and other organisms. I'm no mathematician, but it's safe to say that even over the course of 3,000 years, we haven't yet tried all of the possible combinations and remixed materials available to us. I think in a way, both answers are right. It is certainly true that many of the raw materials we use to make things today are some of the same raw materials that King Solomon and his people used. But it's also true that over the course of 3,000 years, we have altered, bred, discovered, and developed many new raw materials for things. King Solomon certainly didn't have a labradoodle running around the castle as a pet either. Today, I am arguing against the idea of invention, but I am not arguing against the idea of the new. I do believe that nothing under the sun was invented, it was all innovated. And this idea of inventing or being an inventor does seem out of reach to many. There is a sort of heroic feel to it. Innovation, on the other hand, is approachable, it's more doable. But what exactly is it? If you ask 100 people to define innovation, you just might get 120 different answers. In its simplest form, I think innovation is a new solution delivering value to the community. It is solving an unmet need in a new or different way. I do believe that anyone can be an innovator and that innovation can come from anywhere. But just like any process, it takes work. There are countless frameworks to use, a wide variety of guides to follow, and Amazon lists thousands of books on the subject. And just like any other skill, there are varying abilities. Some people are naturally more creative or innovative, no different than some people are naturally more athletically or musically inclined. Over the last 15 years, I've had the opportunity to build and run innovation networks across Indiana and meet a lot of creative, interesting people. I've had a front row seat to innovation behind closed doors at companies large and small, profit for profit. My goal today is to share what I've learned about being more innovative to help you feel more comfortable with the fact that you are an innovator too. You are the one capable of solving the problems you see in the community and the world around you. Here are 6 ways that I believe that you can become more innovative. First, connect the dots. Innovation is simply about connecting the dots. And if you want to connect more dots, you have to collect more dots. Or in other words, if you want to have one good idea, you must first have a lot of ideas. And here's the thing about those ideas that we collect and connect. They don't expire. Ideas build on themselves. If I have an apple and you have an apple, and we exchange those apples, how many apples do we each have? The answer is still just one apple. But if you have an idea and I have an idea, and we exchange those ideas, now how many ideas do we each have? Well, we both walk away with 2 different ideas. Now imagine that exchange happening over and over again the more and more people we meet. How can you add more dots to your canvas? Who can you talk to? What might you read? What social medias might you follow? What newsletters, blogs, or podcasts can you subscribe to? If you want to connect more dots, you have to collect more dots. Second, rediscover your creativity. And yes, you are creative. Researchers estimate that by the age of 5, we are using about 80% of our creative potential. We invent daily, we role play, we are curious, we explore, we color outside of the lines. Sadly, because of many different factors, it is also estimated that by about the age of 12, our creative output has declined to about 2% of that potential. And it generally stays there for the rest of our lives. By middle school, we no longer think of ourselves as creative. But we are creative and always will be. It's been that way from the beginning. Genesis 1:27. So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. God is the ultimate creator, and so are we. Don Hahn is an American film producer widely known for his work with Disney and Pixar. In his book, Brainstorm, Unleashing Your Creative Self, he noted that if God was crazy about creativity, and I was created in the image of God, then somewhere deep inside, I must be crazy about creativity too. And here's the biggest lesson I've learned in all the years running innovation communities. I've had the opportunity to host, plan, facilitate, and attend hundreds of workshops and conferences related to creativity and innovation. Through it all, I have witnessed the magic of the human spirit. We are all creative when given an opportunity to be so, when given permission. And here's one of the biggest insights I have experienced and observed directly. When people are given a chance to play and create, they walk away feeling more creative. This could be through an improv-based game, an opportunity to doodle or sketch, or simply a brainstorming exercise where people can truly voice their own opinions. And when people feel more creative, they feel more innovative in their work. When given the chance to be more creative, you're given the opportunity to be more innovative. How can you spark a little creativity? How can you flex your creative muscle? Next, you need to meet people. Innovation doesn't happen when we withdraw ourselves from the world, but rather when we engage with it. And thinking about connecting the dots, artist Paul Cleave may have said it best when he described a line as a dot that went for a walk. If we want to connect more ideas, we have to get out and explore. We have to take our ideas for a walk. The late entrepreneur Tony Hsieh would often talk about this ability we all have to create our own luck, the serendipity that might happen when we meet new people. The key, he said, was to meet as many people as we can without trying to extract value from them. You don't need to connect the dots right away. But if you think about each person as a new dot on your canvas, over time you'll see the full picture. Networking is a popular term we use for meeting new people. Networking is something we do to build our businesses or grow our knowledge. We need to stop thinking about network as a verb and start thinking about network as a noun. How can you build a more vast and diverse network of people to exchange ideas with? Who will you take your ideas on a walk to? Number 4, reignite your curiosity. To be curious, we just need to be observant and be interested in learning new things. Leonardo da Vinci certainly belongs with other hero innovators or inventors from history. His success was due partly because of his curiosity about everything. Author Walter Isaacson discusses this in his biography of da Vinci. He explains that da Vinci kept a journal with him at all times to track ideas and observations as he explored the world. He filled these journals to the brim with notes and sketches. He filled the margins of his journals with notes and sketches. He filled the margins of his margins with notes and sketches. During research for his book, Isaacson noticed a small note to himself that da Vinci included in the margin of one journal in particular. Describe the tongue of a woodpecker. But why? It could be that he was just fascinated after seeing one. After all, a woodpecker's tongue is about 3 times longer than its beak. Now, we can't possibly know the actual reason for da Vinci's curiosity over the tongue of a bird, but we can certainly imagine da Vinci strolling through a forest, sitting for a while, simply observing the nature around him as he let his mind wander about new ideas. What are you curious about? When is the last time you got outside to explore? Outside of your office, your building, your house? How can you be more curious about the world around you? Fifth, you can refresh old ideas. There's an African concept called Sankofa. Sankofa is a word in the Twi language of Ghana that translates as go back and get it. It is often associated with a proverb that translates as, it is not wrong to go back for that which has been forgotten. Ndubuisi Ekekwe, a regular Harvard Business Review contributor, writes on this idea of Sankofa innovation. Sankofa innovation is a system where makers painstakingly reach back, pick old ideas on processes, concepts, and tools, and improve them while applying their own new techniques. In 1955, Walt Disney combined 3 old ideas, the fairy tale, animation, and the ornamental garden to produce a new idea, the theme park. And some ideas were just simply in the wrong place or happened at the wrong time. In 2013, I was working for a company based in Israel, and during one trip there, had an opportunity to visit Better Place outside of Tel Aviv. If you haven't heard of them, they were Tesla before Tesla. Better Place was going to establish an infrastructure for electric vehicles to create a business model where customers entered into subscriptions to purchase driving distance, similar to how we contracted minutes of airtime for the mobile telephone industry. Better Place's monthly payment would also cover electric fuel costs, including batteries, daily charging, and battery swaps. You probably haven't heard of Better Place because the company was an epic failure due to many reasons, but one can certainly understand how some of their concepts were simply just ahead of their time. With the fast rise in recent years of electric vehicles and companies like Tesla, it is likely that we will see elements from Better Place's model brought back, Sankofa. And finally, you can be more innovative if you repurpose existing ideas, or in other words, beg, borrow, and steal your way to innovation. Remember da Vinci's woodpecker? There's an innovation practice called biomimicry, where we look to nature for possible solutions and design inspiration. Modern neuroscientists and doctors focused on concussions in sports were also curious about woodpeckers. How is it that this bird that bangs its head against the tree all day doesn't get concussed? Leonardo da Vinci was on the right track with his curiosity over the woodpecker's tongue. It turns out that their tongue is also part of the natural solution to avoiding injuries from all that head banging. To reach insects in the trees they bore, woodpeckers do have extremely long tongues. They are about 3 times the length of their beak. When retracted, the tongue wraps completely up and around its brain, where the muscles of the tongue help provide padding. The tongue also wraps around the woodpecker's neck before exiting the mouth, constricting the blood flow to and from the brain. This increases the amount of blood volume in the skull, making it and its precious cargo filled to the brim with fluid, adding even more protection. Based on this idea from nature, doctors at the Cincinnati Children's Hospital developed a neck collar device called the Q collar. It is designed to press gently on the jugular vein, similar to a woodpecker's tongue, to slow blood outflow, increasing the brain's blood volume during competitive play. The resulting effect is blood filling the brain vessel like an airbag to help the brain fit tighter within the skull cavity, reducing the energy absorbed by the brain during collisions. Luke Coakley, a star linebacker for the Carolina Panthers, was the first NFL player to wear the device in 2017. Henry Ford, he is hailed as an American hero for introducing assembly line manufacturing. This makes for a great story, but it's just not true. He wasn't an innovator or an inventor. He was just a good thief. Ford often visited leading companies in non-competing industries looking for new ideas and new methods. He was searching for process innovations he could borrow to help him produce a high volume of cars at a rapid pace with high quality at a lower cost than his competition. During one trip to Chicago in 1912, Ford toured the Swift Armor meatpacking plant. What Ford discovers is the process every meatpacker uses to get different cuts of meat off the bone: a moving disassembly line, where you don't move the workers to the workstation, you move the workstation to the workers. While this method was commonplace in the meatpacking industry, it was unheard of in the automobile manufacturing industry. So Ford borrows the idea of a moving assembly line and combines it with several other ideas that weren't being used in the automobile industry at the time. He borrowed the idea of mass-produced interchangeable parts from the Singer sewing machine company. Ford also applies the concept of a motorized conveyor belt, which canneries had been using since the late 1800s to keep his assembly line moving. Nothing comes from nowhere. Every new idea and innovation is borrowed and built from what came before it. Are there parts of existing ideas that you can borrow? What innovation in a different industry might you apply to yours? How might you deconstruct one idea and reconstruct it to build another? Where might you look for more ideas to steal? I'm going to leave you with a spoken word piece that my good friend Indiana Jones here wrote and performed when he stepped outside of his comfort zone during a play shop at Camp Grounded Summer Camp for Adults. You are an explorer. You are an explorer, a curious collector. Do not just explore countrysides, but explore new ideas and experiences. You are a connector, a master of serendipity. Explorers collect, and the curious connect. Venture outside. Outside of your boxes, outside of your silos, outside into nature. If you want to connect more ideas, you have to collect more ideas. Talk to strangers and be strange. Try new experiences and visit somewhere unexpected. Innovation doesn't happen when we withdraw ourselves from the world, but rather when we engage with it. And the world is a laboratory of ideas waiting to be explored. Thank you.